Okay, I did it. I watched Trump's address to the joint session of Congress for us, and I took notes. It's the State of the Union. We call it something different because it's the first year of this term, but it's the State of the Union. It was 99 minutes long, which is apparently a record, a terrible one. Trump starts off by saying that he proclaims the dawn of the golden age of America, that, he won by the best, biggest numbers mandate. This prompts booing from the Democrats, and Al Green, the representative from Houston, stands up, and in perhaps the most dramatic moment of the night is like, there is no mandate. And then Mike Johnson is like, I'm dying to call in the sergeant at arms. Are you gonna make me do it? I'm dying to do it. And then Al Green doesn't sit down, so Mike Johnson is like, this is my moment. I'm going to have you escorted out. Trump says that the first month of his presidency has featured nothing but swift and unrelenting action, which actually I agree, unrelenting does feel like a great way to describe the beginning of this year. Then he complains that the Democrats aren't clapping for him. Then he starts talking about all his executive orders, bragging about all the stuff he froze, hiring, regulating, international aid. Then, not 5-10 minutes after Al Green was escorted out of the room for talking, he says that he's ended all government censorship. He talks about how he's ended the tyranny of DEI, and then this next part could literally be ripped from one of his campaign speeches, because he talks about how there are only two genders. Joe Biden created inflation. It's Joe Biden's fault about the eggs, and he's going to make America affordable again, which we're waiting. Would love to see it. He says he's ending government waste to fight inflation, which is a really interesting way of phrasing cutting Medicare to give tax cuts to billionaires. Then we get on to DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. When he talks about Musk, Trump is like, he doesn't need this. He doesn't need to be here. He wants to help because, what possibly could an oligarch need from a president? He does this whole list of the money that has apparently been saved, and I'm not going to go through it all right now because most of it is lies. Then he tells a whole bunch of lies about Social Security fraud. Do I think that we should be worried about this rhetoric? Yeah. Seems like some pretty dangerous groundwork is being laid right now. Then he's like, we're not going to have any more regular immigrants. We're only going to have mega wealthy ones, because he's apparently going to try and sell this I think it's $5 million green card, which this is a point he's been excited about for the last several days. And it's so silly to me because the implication that somebody who has $5 million to buy a green card didn't already have the economic means to immigrate wherever they want to is ridiculous. Then he says that any federal bureaucrats who resist his plans for world domination will be removed. I don't know, it might have been the most sort of dystopic novel that you have to read in high school-esque moment of the night, and there were many. But I'm gonna remove all the federal workers who don't agree with me. It was up there. And he talks about how he's not gonna let unelected bureaucrats have power anymore. 10 minutes after he talks about DOGE, he says that. He says he had a great victory on November 5th. It's going to be one of the greatest days in American history. We're all going to remember it forever, which, look, I do think it's going to be a date in American history. And then we're on tariffs. They were enacted, the big tariffs on Mexico and Canada that he's been talking about for weeks. What did that do? That caused the markets to tumble, they're not doing well. The markets. And then he says that on April 2nd, he wants to do it on April 1st, but he wants to avoid the April Fools of it all. On April 2nd, he's going to start doing reciprocal tariffs, which is if you tax me, I'm going to tax you. But apparently the tariffs are going to stop fentanyl. They're going to stop it because America first. More tariffs equals less fentanyl, obviously. He says the CHIPS Act is the worst, but we do need to make more chips here, and hopefully we can accomplish that by threats and tariffs. To the American farmer, he says, I love you too, implying that they said they loved him first. While he was talking about farming and tariffs and how we should just produce all the food that we eat here, which I actually do think we produce enough quantity of food to feed the American people. But what I wrote is, do we need diverse food? Should we just eat corn? Are we about to have a corn famine? I don't want to just eat corn. I know we grow other stuff here, but I want to eat a series of things that are reliant on us trading those things for our things with other countries. I don't want to live in an isolated agriculture bubble. That's all I'm saying. He talks about all the metals that he's going to put tariffs on, like copper and steel. He says we don't have enough, and if we don't have enough, that's bad for the military. And I guess for that reason, he's going to make it more expensive to get. Because we don't have enough of it, we should make it more expensive to get. As he's talking about the tariffs of it all, he says there might be a slight disruption, but we're okay with that. And I wrote, how many people live paycheck to paycheck? Because a slight disruption, I didn't do the Google on this, so I'm not going to make up a number, but I think an astonishing number of American households live a paycheck to paycheck lifestyle. And how infuriating to see the gold-plated billionaire class saying that the disruption of those paychecks is a slight disturbance. He talks about immigration and also how much he hates Joe Biden. And he asks Congress for more money to deport more people. But also he's going to balance the budget, but also he needs more money to deport people who traditionally work low-wage jobs, pay a larger percentage of their income in taxes, and help produce the food that we eat. He needs money to deport them, but also he's going to balance the budget. And then we're on to law and order. He says there should be a mandatory death penalty for anybody who kills a police officer, and then also talks about how police officers shouldn't have to worry about rules, silly little rules, getting in the way of them doing their jobs. Then he talks about how much he likes Bobby Kennedy because he loves saying that he's got a Kennedy on board. He says it's so weird that the Dems don't support him. He's a Kennedy, which, yeah, have you heard what the Kennedys have to say about this particular Kennedy? It's not just the party, it's his family. Then he points out this blonde woman in the crowd and talks about how she was the victim of a terrible incident in which her child's school respected their pronouns. He points out another kid in the crowd, tells him that he got accepted into West Point, and talks about how important it is for people to join the military, which is an interesting sentiment coming from a draft dodger, but okay. Then he's on to the Panama Canal. He wants control of the Panama Canal. Yet another treaty that he'd like to back on out of. And then on Greenland, he's like, look, I totally respect you guys. The people of Greenland can decide their own future. Hopefully they want to be a part of America. We want to have them, but they can totally decide their own future. But one way or another, we're going to get it. Greenland, one way or another, we're going to get it. Is the Blondie song playing in anyone else's head? All of a sudden, as I said that alone in my room to this camera, one way or another. I should probably cut this part. He calls the Middle East a bad neighborhood. Another classic. He says he's working tirelessly on the Ukraine of it all, but that there's no end in sight. Then he repeats his favorite lie about how much money the United States has sent to Ukraine. He massively inflates it and then massively deflates the amount of money that Europe has sent. I did a whole video on this earlier in the week. You can go watch, but I'm just going to say it here one more time. This $350 billion number that he likes to say, that some of y'all like to write in my comments, it comes from nowhere. It's made up. Also, side note, at this point, when the Democrats clap for aid to Ukraine, Donald Trump calls Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas, which is, it's just a real old bit. Then he says that Zelensky sent him a letter saying that he's ready to come to the table. He's ready to sign the rare earth materials, minerals, whatever, the deal that they were supposed to sign before Trump kicked him out of the White House, and that he respects him, that Zelensky has said that he respects Trump as a leader and thanks America for their support. Because at the end of the day, that's what should be deciding matters of international global warfare. Have you satisfied the right guy's ego? Then he wraps it all up by talking about the assassination attempt that he survived and going on this whole rant about history and the golden age of America and how this is going to be nothing we've ever seen before, which, that's what I'm worried about. Anyway, he closes out by being I really believe, and you know what? I think he does. He really believes that God saved his life so that he can make America great again, which is giving very divine sanction to rule, divine right. It's giving king. The whole thing is giving king, and I don't mean that as a compliment.